Good morning and happy Sabbath. I was asked to just come up and share a little bit about the preschool that's opening very shortly. I'm really excited to do so, but before I did, um, I asked the Lord what to share, and He said to share Jesus. So, with that, I wanted to share with you my testimony and a little bit of my family's walk into the SDA faith because I think it's really important to know what your teacher believes. And so I have notes because I'm a woman and I'll talk way too long. So I wanted to start by telling you about a little about my childhood. My parents didn't go to church, but they raised me with strong morals, and I'm really thankful for that. But when I was 3 years old, there was a Mennonite family in my community who had a Bible club every Saturday. And that's where I was every Saturday from 3 to 12. And I learned the foundations of Christ there. And it really impacted my family in a great way. And so I have a great heart for teaching children about the Lord because I don't know where I would be without those Mennonite ladies teaching me what they did. I'm going to fast forward quite a bit. When I was 28 and married to my husband, we were going to a non-denominational church, and I was teaching and he was in college. And so this might have been his second year of college. It was probably my second year of teaching or third. And we were just extremely busy. He was in civil engineering. It was a very tough program. And so every night he'd be studying. I'd be cutting and laminating and, teaching stuff. But we were just busy. And this is before we had children, so we didn't know what busy was. But we made ourselves busy, I'll say that. And we talked about it. Our marriage was kind of suffering because of how much work we were putting on ourselves. And we read the Bible and we prayed. And together as a couple, we decided, we're going to start taking a rest. And how does God tell us to rest? So we said, every Saturday, we're just going to stop. And whatever studying he needs to do from college, he stopped. And whatever laminating and cutting and lesson planning, I stopped. And we still went to our non-denominational church for quite a few years at that point. And our close friends thought we were weirdos because, we're just doing this on our own, but we were fine with that. We felt so much better. My husband had some really big reservations because class was hard, and he had a group of friends that studied with him that were failing constantly, extremely bright people, but classes were hard. And so he said to me, I'm not sure how we're going to take a day off from studying with all this work that I need to do. And so again, we prayed, and we both agreed that when you give God your time, whatever it is, but time is such a precious commodity, and the Lord knows that. When you give him your time, he blesses the rest. And so, as a testimony to the Lord, my husband, Donovan, didn't fail a single course. There were 2 that I know of, maybe more, that he was right on the brink and was actually under the points for passing, but the professor just bumped him up. That's the grace of our God. He's good to us. So fast forward a little more. A couple years later, after following the Sabbath on our own, I was ready to quit teaching because I wanted to open a preschool, a Christian preschool. And I had very specifics in mind. I wanted to teach them my faith. What I thought was most important is not academics. They are important, but I wanted to teach the children about Jesus. And so I met with the pastor at the church we were going to, and they all said yes. The state said no because we didn't have enough windows in the basement. And bathrooms and short sinks, and there was a list of reasons why the state said no. But I was heartbroken because I had this business plan, and I was ready to quit teaching and start this grand adventure, and I thought for sure that was the time. So the Lord didn't say no, he said not yet. I found out the next year why he had said not yet. I was still teaching in a Title I school, a lot of rough families, but they needed Jesus so bad. And I had a friend on Facebook post that she had her daughter going to school with the Bible for Bible club. And I thought, ooh, Bible club in a public school, I need to know about this. And so she helped me get in touch with the ladies in Indianapolis who led a Bible club, and they helped me and my husband start a Bible club at my school. And we did that for 3 years where I taught. And so all those children that had cycled through my classroom as kindergartners got to come back as third, fourth, fifth graders and learn about Christ. I could cry now about it, but I'll try not to. But it was a fulfillment of what I had asked for. So now I understand why he told me not yet. Fast forward a little bit more. It's my 3rd year of teaching Bible club. It's actually my last year because I was pregnant. So I was going to resign from teaching after I had my boy. And the curriculum that I received was from Indianapolis, but I usually rewrote it because of the children that I worked with. They can't sit still nearly that long, and I'm a teacher, so you just tweak things. And the curriculum for that year was the 10 Commandments, which I was thrilled for until we got to Commandment 4, because my family believed the Sabbath is on Saturday, and the church that we were attending had different beliefs. And a lot of the volunteers that were coming had come from my church, were much older people that I highly respected, and I really didn't want to offend them and send them away from my club. And so I felt like I was in a pickle, a spiritual pickle, because it's just not in my heart to appease people when it comes to my faith. And so I broke down for like a week praying, God, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I don't want to teach these kids something that's not true. And I don't want to offend the adults and my volunteers and our program to collapse because of my personal beliefs. And so God in his goodness answered loud and clear. A couple of days later, I got in my mailbox, unaddressed, A Great Controversy. And I'd never seen this book before in my life, and I sped read this thing. And if you haven't read it, it has such great information, but overall, it's a history of the Sabbath and how it has always been followed by God's faithful few. And after reading that, I was just blown away because I thought we were weirdos doing it all by ourselves. And that was God really solidifying the truth in my heart and telling me, yes, tell the children. And so I did. I preached the Sabbath. That was on Saturday. And my club didn't fall apart. In God's grace, the 2 ladies that I was really concerned about offending, they were very faithful and attended every single club as volunteers. Neither of them made it that week, so I didn't even have to, offend them. It was wonderful. Fast forward a little more. I had my little boy, and I had resigned from teaching. We were very comfortable. Donovan started working as an engineer. He'd been working for 2 years, and God out of nowhere, when you're happy and you're settled, that's usually when God pokes you and prods you and makes you uncomfortable again, I've learned. And so this is the very first time and only time really that I can clearly say I heard the voice of God, and he told me it's time to go home. And I thought, but I'm happy where I am. We were in Alaska, and we had roots down, we had ministries going, we were just settled, and it was nice. And anyway, he had told us to move back home to Indiana. And so I kicked and screamed a bit, but eventually God did tell me over and over and over that, yes, it's time to go. And so we had our condo on the market to sell, and it was 2018 that we put it on the market. I thought for sure it would sell in a week because the Lord told us to do it. It was on the market for a year. But we had specifics. We wanted somebody that would come buy all our furniture, and they did eventually, but it was a year later. So in this waiting period, God was preparing us to come here, and this is how. So there's a lot of mental health issues that run in our families, and Donovan and I were both kind of having some pain and issues. Donovan was having a lot of joint pain. And so I'd spent some time researching, how do you prevent these things long term? I'm not into medicine. They have their place, but I'm thinking long term. How do we, as a family, do better for ourselves? And all the research pointed to a vegan diet, which at that point I thought, this is impossible. We actually had friends that were vegan, and we looked at them like they were the weirdos because it was just not what we were raised doing. And I remember sitting Donovan down thinking he's never going to go for this. And he said, well, yeah, let's try it a week. Let's try it for a week and our bodies will tell us, whether it's the right thing. At the end of the week, he had no joint pain and all my inflammation was gone. I'm like, Lord, really? Okay. It was a hard transition for us for sure. But I did tell Donovan at the end of that week, unless I can find some really, really great, easy, maybe like 4-ingredient recipes for vegan cheese, it's just not going to work out. And, you give the Lord ultimatums and he laughs. So here's the fun part of the story. This is where everything changes. Donovan had got some free tickets to go to Talkeetna, which is northern Alaska. It's a tiny little touristy town, but it's right by Mount Denali. So everybody goes to this town to see the huge mountain. And we were there all day. It was fun. It was a beautiful day. And maybe 10 minutes before we were supposed to head back to the train, I had this impression on my heart that I had to go see the river. And I don't know why, other than it's the Holy Spirit leading us. Donovan says, well, we got to get to the train at this time, so we would have to run. And I'm like, okay, let's go. He was like, okay. So we run to the river. It's completely unremarkable. And there's a lady there on a way back that we see. And this is why the Lord brought us. She has a table there with books. And it says free pet therapy. And she has little baby bunnies that she wraps in dishcloths. And she just lets people come and hold these baby bunnies. And of course, I'm like, oh, let's just stop for a second. I just have to touch these bunnies. And this lady says this is, her ministry, and she tries to hand me a book. And it's The Great Controversy. And I'm like, I'm shocked. And I said, I just got this book. And she's like, oh, that's great. I'll give you a different one. And I'm like, but you don't understand. And so we talked for a little while. She gives me her business card, and we leave. We run to the train. Actually, the train was late, so it worked out. Thank God. We get the books. I read Christ Object Lessons the whole way home. It's such a good book. And then I have her business card, and on her business card it said wilderness living and whole food, plant-based diet, all these things. And I just thought, that's just interesting. I emailed her back and I said, thank you so much. Well, I emailed her and I said, thank you so much for the books and your time. I really appreciated talking to you. And she said, oh, it's great. And I told her my husband and I just started trying the vegan lifestyle and it's a little difficult. And she said, oh, that's wonderful. It takes a while, but it's so worth it. And she said, my favorite thing to teach people how to make vegan cheese. And I said, Lord, what are you doing to me? We went out and stayed with her a week, and she taught me how to make 4 different vegan cheeses. Very low ingredients, all in my cupboard, not stuff you can't pronounce, and I was amazed. She told us that, we told her that we'd been worshiping the Sabbath, and she said, well, you have to go to this church. It's SDA O'Malley, so it wasn't far from us in Anchorage. And we went, and I will tell you, it felt like home. Walking through the door, there's this older gentleman just reaching out and saying, Happy Sabbath. And that's the first time I'd ever heard somebody say Happy Sabbath. I went home and cried. I was just like, God has been preparing us all these years to come to this church. And I was just floored that, God is an intimate God, and he works out those details in all of our lives. So 5 months later, we were baptized into the SDA faith. And all of that is to say, here we are. God moved us back to Indiana, even though I didn't want to come because there's no mountains, And then here we are. I resigned from teaching. I have 2 boys, and I thought if I ever did teach again, it would be much later. And then I was asked to teach here. In my own faith, I'm told I can make any program I want, and my boys can come. How could I say no? Of course I said yes. And so here I am. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. So really quickly, I do want to tell you about the program, but I wanted to tell you a little bit of my background information to let you know how God brought us here. I'm nothing remarkable, but the Lord is truly amazing. So the program is a preschool and a kindergarten program. It's for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. And I know we have a lot of homeschool families. We have a lot of families that are already signed up for preschool. I just want to say, please don't let that stop you from getting involved, because I know that this school is the church ministry, and it belongs to all of us. This church has graciously given a great budget, a wonderful budget to work with. We're getting all new furniture that we have. To throw in a little carrot, tomorrow we are having an assembly party for the preschool, and it's a worker bee day. So we're asking for people to come and help pull weeds at 9. You know, we want a facelift. We want this place to look great for all the new children we're trying to pull in. Oh, well, the weeds are everywhere. Have you seen them? No, the weeds are outside, of course, at 9 a.m. And then around noon, we're asking for people to come and just help assemble furniture, because there's a lot of new furniture. And a lot of hands make for a light work for all of us. And then to tell you about the program, so far we have 4 boys signed up, and 2 of them are probably the most rambunctious boys you have ever seen, and they are my own. And so a lot of the program is not going to be in your chair, typical, education-based programs. It's going to be a lot of movement, and a lot of singing, and a lot of dancing, and a lot of jumping, because boys don't sit well, if you've seen my boys during church service. But it's going to be fun. I want the children to have a lifelong love for learning. And that's usually what the children have told me after they grew out of kindergarten. They said, I miss kindergarten. Nobody told me that school wasn't fun after kindergarten. And I said, well, you can come back anytime. But that's my joy. I love teaching, and I want the kids to feel like it's a fun place and not a drudgery by any means. Of course, reading and math and writing are important, but I want it to be a lot of building and playing and STEM. Our teacher, Susan, is big on STEM, and I want to get them prepared to enter into that STEM surrounding by using their brains and hands rather than just sitting with pencils. I have a huge SEL focus, which is social emotional learning, because a lot of us were raised hearing things like, you want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. That was one I heard a lot. But so, well, or don't cry. Boys don't cry. Or, suck it up, toughen up. You can do this. Get through it. And I understand we're all doing what we're taught, but there are better ways to teach children that emotions have a purpose. Anger has a purpose, and it's taking those not so pleasant emotions and learning how to express them in positive ways that aren't so disruptive to other children or even your other family members. And so social emotional learning is really important to me, and in the classroom, in the preschool, we'll be exploring that through the fruit of the Spirit, which is something I think we all need to grow in. And lastly, but most importantly, I want our children, mine included, to have a strong biblical foundation. The world that we live in today is not the same that I was raised in, or many of you. Everything that Christians stand for in any denomination is being challenged. No longer is God the creator. No longer is it male and female. Tolerance means that you have to accept everybody, and what they choose to be truth is truth. You're not allowed to challenge that, because that's not loving and kind. Love is to just accept everything and to let people choose their truth. That's not biblical truth. And that's not what I want my children to be raised with. Learning to love others and to share the love of Jesus is the most important thing I think each of us is tasked with in instilling in our children. I can tell you with my own experience and my husband's experience at work, he has a Christian environment, but he's the only SDA. And he shares his faith loud and proud, but he has a lot of adult friends that send him jokes all the time, or send him bacon memes, or I don't know, whatever it is. And he's constantly being questioned here and there and pricked and probed as, well, this doesn't make sense. And he's allowed to share his faith a lot. But in a Christian community, you don't have those like-minded believers as you would here in an SDA church. And so I am thrilled to have my boys here at a preschool where they can grow and learn with other boys and girls that are like-minded, where they're not going to hear other things, or they're not going to hear someone say church is on a different day, or that the 10 Commandments have been done away with, or any of those things that as you're growing need to be a foundation and not something that's just, well, you pick and choose from the Bible what you want to follow. And so one more thing I really want to teach our children is how to be disciples, because Jesus, the last thing he told his disciples was to go and share, go and tell the world. And I want our children to not just hear that, but have applicable ways to share their faith with people of their age. And I want them to be used to coming into preschool and sharing testimonies. What happened in your family this week? How did the Lord work? So they can see that the Lord is active in all of our lives. He's not just in a book. And so this is my hope for the preschool, and I hope that you will join me in prayer for all that God has in store for whoever the Lord brings in our doors. One last thing, I am going to be having a calendar up on the wall by the potluck hall, and it will be school events, things that you could get involved with even if you do not have school-age children. We want to have like some cooking days, field trips if you want to come for field trips, maybe if you want to come and just share a story, so that the children that come to the school see familiar faces at church and not just mine and Miss Susan and parents, because we're all in this together. So thank you for hearing me, and thank you so much for praying. I know many of you will. We do. We have some room. I also had a friend ask if her son could come once a week. And I haven't talked to the school board yet, but let me tell you, whatever your needs are, we will make room. So if you're already in a preschool program, but you want your child to come for certain events or once a week to be involved with the church, yes. I don't have the details for that, but yes, we'll work it out however you see fit. Thank you. I appreciate your time.